to begin when you're ready, sir.
Is Ms. Davis available?
Good morning, sir. Yes, I'm available.
Right. All right. Good morning, everybody. We're ready to call the board meeting to order. Ms. Davis, if you would please call the roll.
Chairman Vasquez,
Present.
Vice Chairman Schaefer,
Present.
Member Gaines,
Present.
Member Cohen,
Present.
Deputy Controller Stowers,
Present.
That's everybody here. We're all present. We have a quorum. The board meeting is called to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No.
Our board meeting is officially reconvened from yesterday. And I want to open up with, the board has set aside this day for an informational hearing on modernizing California's property tax system, part 3, with a focus on the newly qualified split roll initiative. Board member Gaines of the 1st District is hosting this hearing and will lead the discussion, call upon speakers and the public, and summarize the results of the hearing in a report presented at the next regular board meeting. Member Gaines will take the agenda items in the order in which they appear on the agenda. However, when circumstances warrant, he may modify the order as he chooses. Ms. Davis, if you would please call the first item.
Our first item is opening remarks. Member Gaines, are you ready to provide your opening remarks at this time, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you. But before we start, I just wanted to note one change to our agenda. Oakland Council member Nikki Fortunato-Boss had to cancel for today, but I'm happy to announce that Santa Maria Council member Gloria Soto will be testifying in her place. Council member Soto, thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also want to note that we already have at least 100 speakers committed to the public comment period, which is wonderful. We just have to make sure we can accommodate each of you and also get through our agenda, because we have a hard stop at 4 o'clock. And so I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on the clock to make sure that all of our panelists are able to speak, while at the same time giving opportunities to the public to make comments on each section of today's agenda. So if you could please limit your comments to 1 minute, that would be very helpful. We'd love to have all 100 participants of the public have an opportunity to make a comment. If we get to that unfortunate opportunity at the end where you don't have the time, we're running out of time to speak, that you could please submit those comments to the BOE. You could do that via email or in writing and mail it to us. So we don't want to make sure your voice is heard. So I want to thank my fellow board members and the staff and all participants who have arranged to be here today. We have, of course, had a split roll hearing in the past, but the initiative has changed, and so I'm pleased that we can be here to learn more about Prop 15, the current initiative that is qualified for the ballot. It also appears to be possibly the single largest change considered for property tax in the state of California since the passage of Prop 13 itself. So I think there's great value for the board, the public, and everyone involved in property tax administration to get a good handle on what those changes might mean were split roll to become law. I will invite my fellow board members to make opening comments shortly, but I wanted to note also that we have a jam-packed agenda today and that our presenters are familiar with the time allotted for their presentations. But I will be announcing those times and giving updates on your times as we approach the limits that we've set out, which will allow us to cover our entire agenda. For public comment, we have an entire hour toward the end of the program, but that may be adjusted actually because we're breaking this up into sections. So after each section of the agenda, there'll be an opportunity for the public to speak. So that actual 1 hour could be greatly reduced depending on who speaks when throughout the agenda. And I'm talking about public comment. So we're going to do everything we can to accommodate those individuals. Again, speaking for 1 minute. And I'm really asking that you would monitor your times, members of the public, and also all of us as we proceed through this meeting. And again, we have the hard stop at 4 o'clock today where the meeting must end. So we will take any additional public comments if you don't get that opportunity to speak in written form. Lastly, I want to note that this is an informational hearing only and that the board will not be taking a position on the initiative. Thank you. Okay, now it's time to recognize each member, indicating that they have time for opening remarks. And if you could please limit your remarks, members, to 2 minutes. Chair Vasquez, would you like to begin?
Thank you. Thank you, Member Gaines, for holding this hearing today. The Split Roll Initiative, Proposition 15, is proposing a very major change to California's property tax system. As such, it deserves careful study. As a state agency responsible to oversee the property tax system, the board has a duty to document the real cost to taxpayers and county assessors and AABs, and the actual tax revenues generated if it passes. This data is important for everyone to understand as they evaluate this measure. It's my hope that this hearing is the first step toward developing and sharing that information in an open public forum. As with our previous informational hearings, I am confident that the information generated today will be a valuable tool in the board's efforts to successfully modernize California's property tax. With that, I will yield the floor back to Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Chair Vasquez. Vice Chair Schaefer, we'd love to hear from you. Now your mic, I'm not hearing I think your mic is turned off.
Okay, it's on now. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to thank all of our public speakers for participating today. I mean, 100, that's as large an audience as we've ever had. I want to assure you that we all have a neutrality on this very important issue coming up before the people. I want to thank you especially for moderating this. There's few issues, as you point out, that have such a significant impact on the people of California, on the board, property taxation. You know, this is really important times, and this is an important day. And thank you, Ted, for all you've done, and I look forward to hearing what all of my colleagues have to say.
Great, thank you, Member Schaefer. Member Cohen, we'd love to hear your comments. I think your mic is off. Yep.
You would think I would have it down with the number of Zoom calls that I do on a daily basis, let alone weekly. But good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the members of the public. Also want to acknowledge our own BOE staff. I am actually very excited to be here, elated to be quite honest, to talk together about this morning about our third statewide informational hearing. As you may recall, we launched a property tax modernization initiative in 2019 to conduct the assessment of our property tax system. As part of this process, we have reviewed such issues as the current state of the property tax administration, the future of property tax administration, understanding the strengths and the weaknesses and the opportunities. We've covered issues, workforce issues such as capacity and planning, recruitment, retention, training, education, as well as compensation. So we've addressed many of these challenges of the Assessment Appeals Board as well in these discussions, particularly valuing business equipment as well as emerging issues like split roll. So today is really a combination of the previous work and meetings that we've held that began late last year, and I'm excited to be here and to continue this conversation. Just as a reminder, this is a hearing, no decisions will be made, but we are bringing stakeholders together and thought leaders together so that we can have a very thoughtful conversation around this critical piece of legislation that voters are going to be voting on in November. Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, Member Cohen. Member Stowers?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for this opportunity to make some opening remarks. I believe this board's responsibility and focus relating to Prop 15 are appropriately on understanding the provisions of this measure and their implementation should the voters approve this measure. As a partner with the 58 county assessors and property tax administration, this board, I hope today during this hearing, can hear from interested parties responses to questions that I believe each of our offices have received about the implementation of this measure should the voters pass it, but also responses to questions about the measure's impacts. Some of the questions our office has received, which I would like our speakers to address today, include the following. Prop 15 is really ill-timed, hitting commercial and industrial property owners and small businesses when they are down. The future of commercial property, especially commercial office buildings and shopping malls, is far from certain in light of COVID-19 pandemic and pandemic-induced recession that has increased the prominence of telework and less reliance on brick and mortar shopping experiences. Question: do the revenue estimates for how much this measure will generate account for this? Also, as we know, COVID-19 impacts small businesses, disproportionately hit minority-owned businesses, Black-owned and Latino-owned businesses. In light of the challenges of this business to access federal business relief and traditional avenue to capital, does Prop 15 add one additional hurdle for these businesses to reopen or reestablish through higher lease costs? Also, I'm thinking of the crafters of Prop 10. What were they thinking with respect to the following three items? Locking in the tax allocation and transfer provisions in the California Constitution rather than incorporate them into statute. That was one. Two, phase in reassessment commercial and industrial property based on the percentage of those properties within each county, beginning with 22-23 fiscal lien date rather than by property tax. Prop 15 could result in like-kind properties being treated differently within a county. 3, reassessing commercial industrial property instead of applying a different property tax rate that would ease implementation by our county assessors. A couple other more points. Will the county assessors be able to implement Prop 15 even with the cost recovery provisions in the measure? Is the cost provisions adequate? What are some of the specific hurdles to implementation that this board and the county assessors will expect to address? Wrapping up, during this time when racial equity and injustice are high in people's consciousness, I am mindful of the impacts of policies that exacerbate racial inequity. History has continued important moments of rights being accorded to communities of color without any access to economic gains that were accorded to others. I understand the need to close the loophole for how commercial and industrial properties are assessed as compared to assessments of residential property. However, property tax allocation formulas remain the same. So are we not baking in current inequities more deeply? For minority owners, should Prop 15 pass, are we once again staving off opportunities for these businesses owners to regain their livelihoods, let alone get on a path of building wealth? Those are some of the questions I look forward to having our speakers address. Thank you, members. And again, I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Member Stowers. Thank you, members, for your remarks. We will be letting speakers know when they are approaching their time limits to help manage the agenda. Members, please hold your questions until the end of each speaker's remarks, and then you will be recognized. Thank you. Ms. Davis, please call the next item on the agenda.
Our next item on the agenda is the overview of Proposition 15. Member Gaines.
Yeah, so thank you for this opportunity to introduce Brian Euler, who is the Deputy Legislative Analyst of the Legislative Analyst Office. Brian, you have 15 minutes for your remarks, and thank you for making a presentation today. Are you ready?
Thank you, Member Gaines. Oh, yes, I am ready. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today and provide you with an overview of Prop 15. Before I get into my overview of Prop 15, I want to start with some brief context about our office's role in the initiative process. State law tasks our office with providing an impartial, nonpartisan description of each proposal and its fiscal effects for the voters. Within the bounds of this somewhat narrow charge, we don't evaluate the policy merits of the propositions, make recommendations on them, or take positions. For this reason, I won't be able to speak today to questions that primarily pertain to the merits of Prop 15. Given that context, let me start with an overview description of the measure, which would make multiple changes to the way that property is assessed in California. Some of these changes would increase property tax paid by businesses, and others would decrease them. First, Prop 15 requires that commercial real property be taxed based on market value instead of its Prop 13 basis, which is based on its original purchase price. This change is phased in over a number of years, beginning in 2022. And many of the details of this phase-in would be left to implementing legislation that would be passed after the measure is approved by voters. The change wouldn't start until 2025 for properties that are used by California businesses that meet certain rules and have 50 or fewer employees. And in addition, housing and agricultural land will continue to be taxed based on its Prop 13 value. The shift to market value taxation would not apply to commercial real property owned by a person or business who owns less than $3 million worth of property in California. And this $3 million limit would be adjusted for inflation every 2 years by the board, and this inflation adjustment would be considered at the county level. On the flip side, the measure would make some changes that would reduce taxes on business personal property. Specifically, the measure reduces the taxable value of each business's personal property by $500,000. Businesses with less than $500,000 of personal property would pay no taxes on those items, and all taxes on business personal property are also eliminated for California businesses that, again, meet certain rules and have 50 or fewer employees. So given that description, turning then to our office's assessment of the fiscal effects of those changes. Under the measure, most owners of commercial real property worth more than $3 million would pay higher property taxes over time. Only some of these property owners would start paying higher taxes beginning in 2022. But by around 2025, most of these property owners would be paying higher property taxes. Beginning around that time, we estimate that total property taxes from commercial real property probably would be somewhere between $8 billion and $12.5 billion higher in most years. It is important to note, though, that the value of commercial real property can change a lot from year to year. This means that the increased property taxes from the measure also could change a lot from year to year. On the flip side of the increase on real property, we estimate that the property taxes on business personal property probably would be several $100 million lower each year under the measure's changes to the assessment of that property. The measure on net, the revenue increase from the change to the assessment of real property would be larger than the decrease from the business personal property changes, which would lead to a net increase in property tax revenue. First, from this pot of money, the measure sets aside money for various costs created by the measure. The most significant of these costs is to provide funding to counties to pay for their costs of carrying out the measure, and we think this is likely several $100 million per year. This measure would both increase the amount of work county assessors do and could require significant changes in the way they go about doing that work. Counties have costs from the measure before new money is available to cover these. They could have costs before new money is available to cover the costs. And the measure states that the state would loan money to counties to cover these initial costs until new property tax money is available. After accounting for the reduction in business personal property and the funds set aside for costs related to the measure, we think that overall the measure would result in $6.5 billion to $11.5 billion per year in new property taxes that would be allocated amongst local governments. About 60% would go to cities, counties, and special districts collectively. Each city, county, or special district share of the money depends on several factors, including the amount of new taxes paid by commercial properties in that community. Not all governments would be guaranteed new funds under the measure, and perhaps some in rural areas may end up losing revenue because of lower taxes on business personal property. The other 40% of the revenue would go to provide increased funding for schools and community colleges, and each school or community college's share of the money would be primarily based on how many students they have. I want to conclude by shifting my comments to speaking to some of the key uncertainties about the measure. Several important uncertainties that our office faced in evaluating the potential fiscal effects of Prop 15. This uncertainty is reflected in the wide range of the estimates that I mentioned above, $6.5 billion to $11.5 billion. I want to speak directly to two key areas of uncertainty that we've gotten questions about. First is the potential behavioral response of businesses, property owners, and commercial landlords. And there are certainly a variety of ways these affected parties could respond to Prop 15. Some of these responses could have negative ramifications for the state economy or in our fiscal effects. And in our view, we do not feel that the existing research on these questions allows us to unequivocally say how businesses and property owners will respond to the measure. And as such, we presented a wide range of estimates that we think captures the wide range of possible behavioral outcomes. A second key uncertainty is the effect of the ongoing pandemic. While the pandemic has undoubtedly had major impacts on the state's economy and real estate markets, it's our thought, and I would say, frankly, hope that most or all of these impacts will recede over time as strategies are developed to control the virus. And the aim of our office in our analysis is to provide voters with a sense of the long-term effect. 15. And given the hopefully transitory nature of the pandemic, we were cautious about giving it undue importance in evaluating the long-term effects of Prop 15. There certainly is a possibility of a lingering or even permanent economic changes from the pandemic and changes to commercial real estate markets more specifically. But at the moment, we feel that making any particular assumptions about these changes would be unduly speculative in our role. That concludes my comments, and I'd be happy to take any questions the members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. And, Ms. Davis, we can open this up for public comment.
Thank you, Member Gaines. We have several public comments that we have received, and let me also mention that we had one public comment related to the opening remarks that we can go back to after we receive the public comments for this item, if that is okay with you.
Yeah, if we could please limit the 1 minute. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. There were several written comments that were received from our office. If you can please make sure that if you are not speaking, if you can mute yourself. Thank you very much. We've received several written comments. We have Henry Nanjo, who is on hand, who is going to be reading the written comments that were received. Henry Nanjo, Mr. Nanjo, are you available?
Yes.
Do you have the list of commenters?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, the first comment is from Isaiah Gilanoff. I apologize for any mispronunciations. Comment. I am a senior in San Francisco. I support Proposition 15 because it will provide funding for local services such as public libraries. It is important to me because I depend on libraries every day. I download books, watch films, participate in discussions. Libraries are the center of my educational world. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools, local service, public libraries by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture.
Is it a guy?
The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and that it is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change for Californians like me, have needed it for a very long time. I am asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Barbara Kivovitz, San Francisco. The next item is from Major General Robert B. Ostenberg, U.S. Army retired. I strongly urge you to vote no on Proposition 15, which will have a devastating negative impact on veterans in California as the whole is due to the ripple effects caused by this bill, RBO. Next item, Christopher Finley. My name is Christopher Finley. I am a parent and teacher in Fresno. I support Proposition 15 because it provides funding for public education, including K through 12 and community colleges. This is important to me because I truly believe America's future rests with our ability to educate future generations in a global setting. California ranks in the bottom 10th in pupil spending nationwide. However, our economy is in the top 10 in the world. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools, local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring Proposition 15 is implemented effectively, and that is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and community first. Sincerely, Christopher Finley, Senior, teacher and parent, Fresno. Next item is from Naquiba Gregory. My name is Naquiba Gregory. I'm a parent and public school teacher in West Sacramento, Yolo County. I support Proposition 15. It will provide funding for public education, including K-12 and community colleges. This is important to me because our students deserve the best public education in our world. Our students are our future, and we need to invest in them so they can lead us into the future. They deserve a well-rounded education that offers them what they need to succeed. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and that is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our school and community first. Sincerely, Naquiba Gregory, parent, public school teacher, West Sacramento. Next item is from Jonathan Goldman. My name is Jonathan Goldman. I am a concerned citizen in San Francisco. I support Proposition 15 because it provides much needed funding for schools and colleges. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and our local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and that it is fully enforced. I call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Jonathan Goldman, Communications Director, San Francisco. Next item is from Alexandria Leon. My name is Alexandria Leon. I'm a renter in the city of Southgate. I support Proposition 15 because it is time we start moving in the direction to adequately fund our schools in the state of California. It will provide funding for possibly smaller classrooms, more teachers, mental health resources, creative outlets such as art and dance. This is important to me because as an alum of LAUSD, the second largest school district in the nation, I witnessed the funding disparities every time I stepped onto my campuses. I had AP classes of almost 50 students. My teachers were always in danger of being pink slipped, and I wish there was more resources that supported my campuses. I had AP classes of almost 50 students. My teachers were always in I loved my experience as an LAUSD student, but I have always wondered what it would be like if my schools had all the funds they needed to reach their maximum potential. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools, local services, and by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners, renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and that is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that will that Californians like me have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Prop 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Alexander Leon, Southgate, California. Next was from an anonymous senior in San Francisco. Comment, I am a senior in San Francisco. I support Proposition 15 because it will provide funding for local services such as public libraries. This is important to me because I depend on libraries every day. I download books, watch films, participate in discussions. Libraries are the center of my educational world. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion for our schools and local public services by libraries by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small business, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and that it is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion by implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Anonymous Senior. Next item is from Paula Larson Moore. My name is Paula Larson Moore. I am a parent, homeowner, longtime public school parent in Oakland, California. I support Proposition 15 for numerous reasons, including that it will provide much needed funding for public education, including K through 12 and community colleges, and from community necessities such as affordable housing to address our homelessness crisis. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools, local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners, renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring Proposition 15 is implemented fairly and effectively and that is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me and my family have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, regards, Paula Larson Moore. Next item is from Helen Hutchinson. I support Proposition 15 because it is an important piece of helping California have a stable recovery from the current economic crisis. It will provide increased stable funding for the critical services that build out our strong communities, everything from libraries to infrastructure to public health to running elections. You, the Board of Equalization, have a critical role in ensuring that Proposition 15 is implemented fairly and effectively and that it is enforced. Please support this important measure on the November ballot. Sincerely, Helen Hutchinson, Oakland, California. Next item is
I'm sorry, Mr. Nanjo,
Sure.
I don't mean to interrupt you. What we'd like to do is make sure that we have the opportunity to have those who are on the phone. We want to make sure we have the opportunity to have those who are on the phone make their public comments, and then we will have the written comments read further because we want to make sure that we are staying on time, and we're also honoring those who are on the phone who have been waiting to make public comment. So if that is okay with you, Mr. Gaines, Member Gaines?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Member Gaines, this is Vice Chair Schaefer. I would appreciate it if we would not have any anonymous letters read. You cannot have an anonymous letter to the editor. If somebody does not want to attach their name to their comment, I would say we should not put it on our very tight agenda and just listen to those who come to us with a name attached. Okay? Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Hi, Member Schaefer. This is Henry Nanjo, Chief Counsel. Unfortunately, under the rules of Bagley-Keene, we must read public comments, including those that are anonymously given. There is no obligation to provide a name under the law.
That is in Bagley-Keene. You can give me the language so I can verify that? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and proceed as originally as we have. So. But I think we're going to hear from people that are now on the line. Is that right, Ms. Davis? People have called in.
That is correct. AT&T moderator, can you please let us know if there is anyone who is on the line at this time who would like to make a public comment regarding this matter at this time?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to provide public comment, please press 1, then 0 on your touch-tone keypad, and an operator will provide you with the line number. You may withdraw your question at any time by repeating the same command. If you're using a speakerphone, we ask that you please pick up the handset before pressing the numbers. Once again, if you'd like to provide a public comment, please press 1, then 0 at this time.
If we could please limit the comments to 1 minute. Thank you.
And at this time, we have no one with a public comment.
Thank you.
Member Gaines, since we don't have anyone with a public comment that's on the phone at this time, would you like to continue with Mr. Nanjo reading the written comments into the record?
Mr. Nanjo, how many more comments do you have to read?
At this point, it looks like I have about 6.
Okay, and I'm concerned about getting behind on the agenda. Could those be read toward the end of the meeting?
Unfortunately, our obligation is that these people, I'm just reading those who have requested a public comment on this particular item, so we do need to read them here.
Could please, yeah, I guess you can't control the length, can you? So
no,
please read them as fast as you can so we can stay on agenda.
I am reading them as quickly as I can, sir.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next item is from Celeste Allen, MD. My name is Celeste Allen, MD. I'm a pediatrician, parent and homeowner in Oakland, California. I support Proposition 15 for a number of numerous reasons, including it will provide much needed funding for public education, including K through 12, community colleges, and community necessities such as affordable housing to address our homelessness crisis. These issues are important to me as a parent who has spent a lot of my life fundraising for local schools because they are so woefully underfunded, not to mention inequitably funded. While my kids cannot understand why our communities are unable to fund solutions to issues like the ever-increasing homelessness around us, Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and that is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion by implementing a change that Californians like me and my family have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools first. Sincerely, Celeste Allen, MD. Next item is from another anonymous commenter. I am a mother of a rising second grader in Redwood City. My daughter's public school was one of 4 schools closed last year because the district did not have enough money to keep them open. In the state with the highest GDP and one of the wealthiest countries in the world, it is unimaginable that we can't properly fund and support our schools and communities. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture. These corporations benefit from the educated citizenry and public services, so it's only fair that they pay their fair share of taxes. We can't pay teachers, librarians, or garbage collectors 1978 wages or 1982 wages or 1998 wages. We have to pay them 2020 wages. Therefore, corporate property taxes should be assessed at current property values. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and is fully enforced. I call upon the Board of Equalization to live up to its mission to serve California's fair, effective, and efficient tax administration in support of local governments. I'm asking you to support Prop 15, a fair, effective, efficient, balanced reform in support of local governments, schools, and communities. Next item is from Rachel Hollograss. My name is Rachel Hollograss. I'm a parent homeowner. I've lived in Oakland for 25 years. I attended California public schools from kindergarten through undergraduate school, mostly before Proposition 1978's Prop 13. California public schools were ranked as excellent. Excuse me, I'm having a technical glitch. There it goes. Were excellent at the time. With tax reform, they could be again. I support 2020's Proposition 15 because businesses will benefit from well-educated labor force. I believe it will be less expensive for businesses to have better education for their employees and families to allow California schools to continue to decline. Next item is from Theodore Lamb. I am a parent of a 4th grader and active volunteer at my son's elementary school. He goes to school in El Cerrito, Contra Costa County. I support Proposition 15 because it will provide funding for public education, including K through 12 and community colleges. This is important to me because from my kindergarten through 3rd grade, all my son's teachers have asked for class supply donations at the start of the school year, and regularly throughout the year because of the need to regularly throughout the year because the district does not have funding to adequately educate all 470 students at school. I and other parents spend much of our free time fundraising to buy cleaning supplies, copy paper, markers, and other things students need. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners, renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and that is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Ted Lamb, Civil Engineer, El Cerrito. Next item is anonymous public comment. I am a mother of a rising 2nd grader in Redwood City. Last year, my school was, this one is a repeat, I'm sorry. Next item is from Janine Jensen. Hello, my name is Janine Jensen. I'm a homeowner in Oakland. I have been for the last 30-plus years. I support Proposition 15 because it will provide funding for local services such as parks and recs, city services, and maintaining our streets and roads. This is important to me because my family walks and hikes frequently around the hills and flatlands of Oakland, spend time at Lake Merritt. My husband cycles our streets and roads, which often need repairs of potholes. Also, I am a volunteer with the Oakland Public Schools at Hoover Elementary. I see the need for more funding and resources for our schools, who are the future. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Proposition 15 is implemented effectively and that is fully enforced. We call upon the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion by implementing a change that Californians like me and our children have needed for a very long time. I am asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform, put schools and communities first. Sincerely, Janine Jensen, retired Human Resources Manager, mother, and public school volunteer. Next item is from Griffin Resilius Vicente Castillo. Hi, my name is Griffin Resilius Vicente Castillo. I'm from Oakland, California, a place of love, life, beauty, and joy. But this is in stark contrast to the conditions that many in my beautiful city are forced to live under. Because of historically racist policies such as redlining, Jim Crow laws, and the war on drugs, people of color have been systematically denied opportunities to invest in their communities. Because of this, our communities are underfunded and our children are suffering for it. We have teacher strikes because they are not paid a fair wage. We've run out of paper for students and staff. We have had to cut student services that give students spaces to grieve and process traumas they face on a daily basis. I'm here today to urge all to support the passing of Proposition 15, the money that it would bring our education system, which currently ranks 46th in per pupil spending, while our economy alone is the 5th largest in the country, is a direct investment in our collective future. To invest in youth is to invest in yourself and the livelihood of this country as a whole. Please support Proposition 15. We are counting on you. Thank you for your time. Griffin Castillo. Next item is, okay. I believe that's all the comments I have for number 2. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Davis, are we ready to proceed?
Excuse my interruption. We do have public comment. We do have 2 people who have queued up.
Okay, we'd love to hear their comments. Thank you.
Okay, first we'll go to line 55, but before we do, ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, if you'd like to provide a public comment for today, please press 1 then 0 at this time. Line 55, your line is now open. Please proceed.
Hello?
Hello,
ahead, sir.
welcome to the BOE.
Hello?
Hello,
Am
would
I
you
on?
like to make a comment? Yes, you're on.
Okay, I would. Mine is going to be much more of a philosophical comment. This is a typical tax grab by Sacramento. Under Proposition 13, the schools have received 4 times what they were before, so there's no shortage of money. It's the shortage of will. There's no accountability to government spending. We passed the gas tax. I have not seen one improvement of the roads around my area. There's the same old song, money for education. The lottery that was supposed to solve all our problems, where did that money go? And I want to give the example of the gas tax again. Why do we have the highest state tax in the country and the most poverty? You just give money to government and it goes down the tube. You might as well burn it. This will ruin the commercial property market, increase rents, especially for small businesses. I just definitely vote no against this typical Sacramento tax grab. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Let's go to line number 70. Line 70, your line is now open.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Larry Starch. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today.
Thank you.
As the speaker, I oppose this proposition for several reasons. But I first would like to comment that many of the red comments were very scripted, which I find interesting as an individual citizen. That said, my position is based on we have passed numerous pieces of legislation to increase school funding. It seems the money never gets there, and we continue to use that same excuse to justify other tax increases and funding measures to play on the heartstrings of our children, which I've raised 2 in this state and have gone through the school system, and the need for increasing school spending. But yet I do not see the result of that spending in the schoolroom, the classroom, affecting my kids. The other thing I'd say is it takes away a large incentive.
We're trying to, could you please wrap up?
Yeah. The other thing I'd say is it takes away a large incentive to keep or place a business in California because of the exposure of increased taxes. And as a citizen, I'm going to be paying for this increase out of my pocket, so I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And next we'll go to line number 91. Line 91, your line is now open.
Hello, my name is Patricia Spinberg. I'm from the Fallbrook area, San Diego area. I am in opposition to this proposition. I read a letter to the Honorable Xavier Becerra, and a portion of these taxes, imposed taxes, right off the top is going to administrative fees, reimbursement. This money isn't going to the schools, and that's what I find disturbing. The government in Sacramento has been unaccountable, has just spent money from the general fund, and there's no accountability. The money doesn't get to the schools, and the 40% that is technically slated for that is not going to their salaries. It's not going to be improving. You take a look around at all the things that they say they're going to do, and it won't be done. I would like to see the money where it's going to be allocated. Why isn't 40% going directly to the schools right off the top? Where is this administration fees? Those go to the salaries of the government. How about taking away some of the expenditures of the government officials, like Governor Newsom and Nancy Pelosi? How about taking away their expense accounts? How about making them pay for the inaccurate funds where they put their money?
Great. Thank you very much. Any other speakers?
And next we'll open line number 65. Line 65, your line is now open.
All right. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Kathy Pastula. I have been a resident of the state of California for 51 years. I have been a homeowner for 48 of those years. I have raised 4 children, and I am currently a small business owner in Ted Gaines' area. I've noticed that you're cutting off comments rather quickly if we're in a pose, so I'll make this very quickly.
No. Let me clarify. We're asking people to try to make their comments in 1 minute's time on both sides. I stated that.
Okay, so you're taking up my time, so allow me to continue. Okay? Yeah. Allow me to continue because I know liberals don't do that very well. Let me let you know that I am animally opposed to this. I own a business. I do rent it. My business is already on the verge of failing. Thank you to COVID. Thank you to PG&E. Thank you to the policies of this state. This is one more stake in the coffin, and I am animally opposed to this. I am appalled that you allowed the prior person to regurgitate all of these scripted support. And I also noticed that they're from the East Bay. I am not from the East Bay. I'm from the foothills, and we are imploding here. And somebody needs to recognize this. Something needs to be done, but it is not to support the California Teachers Union. This is illegal. I was around for Harp. Okay, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
No, you.
So open line number 63. Line 63, your line is now open.
Hi, my name is Kit Saganor. As a community college librarian for 25 years, I've worked with students in every discipline and program and have seen the erosion of educational opportunity resulting from Prop 13. Because education is a public good contributing to the overall health, happiness, and prosperity of the state, the effect of Prop 13 has been to impoverish all of us. Prop 13 was sold to the voters as protection for individuals, particularly low-income seniors, but it has allowed wealthy corporations to evade civic responsibility. As the bumper sticker says, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Well, now we have tried ignorance. It is too costly to continue. Please support Prop 15, which has protections built into it for small business owners, but will mean that the large, wealthy corporations will have to pay their share. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, members of the public, if you could please limit your comments to 1 minute, and really appreciate that. We want to make sure that everybody's heard. Next speaker, please.
And as a reminder, if you'd like to queue up for public comment, please press 1 then 0 at this time. And we'll go to line number 91. Line 91, your line is now open.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Patricia, and I'm from the San Diego area. If you want big businesses to pay, send them a bill. Why do you have to change it through a proposition? I think this is crazy that you keep saying that you're going to send this money once you tax them to the companies, but you're going to have it all going to administrative costs. It's going to go to the general fund. It's not going to go to the schools. I think everyone should vote no. There's no identifiable way that these things are going to be allocated to the schools, none whatsoever. We've already seen the spending tactics of the government up in Sacramento. It's atrocious. It's ludicrous. And I say anybody who votes yes, we're just asking for trouble. It's just going to give them more money, and they spend it without being accountable. Until they're accountable, you don't get any more money. None. Not even from the wealthy. You should send them a bill. You want them to pay for something? Send them a bill so that they can pay for that specific thing.
Thank you.
Taxing them inappropriately.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it.
And next, we'll open the line of line number 68. Your line is now open.
Yeah, 1 minute comment, please. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rachita Rawal. I'm a campaign coordinator with Evolve California. We're a grassroots nonprofit based in San Francisco. I'm here to represent our 13,000 members who are all in support of Proposition 15. Prop 15 is common sense and will simply put our state on par with how the rest of the country taxes commercial property, while maintaining one of the lowest commercial property tax rates at 1%. It makes no sense that we continue to allow Disneyland to pay property taxes based on 1975 land values, while Disney World in Florida pays property taxes based on fair market value. It's time for California to join the 21st century. On top of that, we need this long-term revenue now more than ever, since our schools and local governments are facing unprecedented cuts. If we don't pass Prop 15, our necessary services will either be cut, or California families will have to carry even more of the tax burden. This is clearly unsustainable and unfair. Instead of continuing to tax everyday people, it's time to make some of the wealthiest corporations pay their.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yes, sir. Next, we'll open up the line of line number 98. Your line is now open.
Yeah, you have 1 minute, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Chris Evans. I'm the Executive Director of the Antelope Business Community outside of Sacramento, California. I just want you to know that as for our businesses, we adamantly oppose Proposition 15. Every single time the politicians want to dig into our pockets, they throw out there that police, schools, all the services we need are going to be cut, and they cut none of the services that they like, all the social programs that they want to promote. And frankly, gang, if you guys really wanted this to get passed, you'd put through a ballot measure that honestly outlined what it did. You wouldn't have to lie about it, you wouldn't have to cheat, and you wouldn't have to lie to the voters and tell them it does one thing when it does another. I do appreciate the opportunity to express my opinions, and I hope that you'll vote no against Proposition 15.
Thank you for your call. Next speaker, please.
And next, we'll open line number 96. Line 96, your line is open.
Hello, next speaker.
Line 96, your line. Line 96, your line is open. With no response, we'll move on to line number 97. Line 97, your line is now open.
My name is Rebecca Evans. I am the Executive Director of the 80-Watt District
PBID, which is a Property Business Improvement District. I represent over 200 commercial property owners, and they cannot afford to be taxed even more. To be honest, it's a very hard year. It's a very hard life to even put people into the business, and the COVID has taken people not even using their offices anymore. So the bottom line is we are asking you, and we are completely oppose any more taxes on our properties. It does not go to the schools. It completely gets put into general funds, and we're asking you to oppose it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
And as another reminder, if you'd like to provide a public comment, you may press 1 then 0 at this time.
And please limit the comments to 1 minute. Thank you.
And now we'll open the line number 96. Your line is now open. Your line is open. Please speak.
Hi, is this the line?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Nikki Linderman. I'm a homeowner in Stockton. I support Proposition 15 because it is time to close the corporate loophole that happened in 1978. It was intended to help seniors, not Disneyland, Amazon, and corporate giants. It will provide funding for local services in schools and communities which desperately need it. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Prop 15 is implemented effectively and that it is fully enforced. We call on the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Proposition 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
And at this time, sir, there's no one with further public comments.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll move forward then to the next portion of our agenda. Let's see. So
I'm sorry, Member Gaines.
Yeah.
We have some additional public comments that have come in for a reading on item number 2. If we can finish those off really quickly.
Okay, then can we get back to our agenda?
Yes, as soon as we finish reading these 5, I believe.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ronati, are you going to be reading these?
Yes, I'm ready.
Thank you.
The first, there are 6 comments, Mr. Gaines. The first one is from Cleo Korn. The comment is, my name is Cleo Korn. I'm a resident of Oakland, California. I support Proposition 15 because it is well-crafted and thoughtfully written policy that is supported by a broad coalition of California citizens, business associations, educational institutions, civic leaders, and community groups that would provide much-needed funds for our communities. We provide funding for local services that I want for my family, friends, and community to have access to, including quality public education, well-maintained city infrastructure and parks, and city services such as libraries. Proposition 15 would reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Prop 15 is implemented effectively and that it is fully enforced. I call on the Board of Equalization to rise of implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a very long time. I'm asking you to support Prop 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Dr. Cleo Korn, research scientist, Oakland, California. The next comment is from Michael Shedler. The comment is, we cannot afford this tax hike. It is the largest tax hike in our history. It will cause small businesses to close or leave the state, increase the cost of living, and impose additional regulations. The next comment comes from Sue Goldberg. My name is Sue Goldberg. I am a retired county social worker for Contra Costa County. I support Prop 15 because it will provide funding for the Employment and Human Services Department of Contra Costa County. This is important to me because the Home Supportive Services program that I worked in is in dire need of funds. This program provides much-needed care for seniors and disabled people, care that is especially vital during this pandemic, but always so essential. Prop 15 revenue would reclaim $12 billion each year for schools and local services while protecting homeowners, renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Prop 15 is implemented effectively and that it is fully enforced. We call on the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a long time. I am asking you to support Prop 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Sue Goldberg, now in Oakland, California. The next comment comes from Cynthia Park. My name is Cynthia Park. I'm a resident and parent residing in the city of Alameda. I support Prop 15 because it provides needed funding for K-12 public education. Public schools play an incredibly important role in our communities and remain one of our best tools to address increasing socioeconomic inequities. Prop 15 will reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all by protecting homeowners and renters, small businesses, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Prop 15 is implemented effectively and that it is fully enforced. We call on the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me have needed for a long time. I ask that you support Prop 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Cynthia Park, resident and parent, Alameda, California. The next comment comes from Karen Harb. It is definitely not the time to raise taxes when so many are suffering economic hardships. Owners of commercial buildings as well as apartment buildings are already struggling with tenants who cannot pay rent but cannot be evicted. The owners of commercial properties will have to pass the rising cost of owning property to the tenants or customers. Do not raise taxes on a population that is already financially struggling. The next comment is from Kate Costello. My name is Kate Costello, and I'm a parent, homeowner, and small business owner in Los Angeles, California. I support Prop 15 for numerous reasons, including that it will provide much-needed funding for public education, including K-12 and community colleges, and for community necessities such as affordable housing to address our homelessness crisis. These issues are important to me as a parent who sees firsthand the struggle the public schools face in meeting student needs and potentials, and as a parent who has a conversation with my child about why our communities are unable to find solutions to issues like the ever-increasing homelessness all around us. Prop 15 will reclaim $12 billion every year for our schools and local services by closing corporate property tax loopholes, all while protecting homeowners and renters, small business, and agriculture. The Board of Equalization has an important role to play in ensuring that Prop 15 is implemented effectively and that it is fully enforced. We call on the Board of Equalization to rise to the occasion of implementing a change that Californians like me and my family have needed for a very long time. I'm asking that you support Prop 15, a fair and balanced reform to put our schools and communities first. Sincerely, Kate Costello. And that concludes the comments.
There is one comment. This is Henry Nanjo, Acting Board Proceedings Chief. There's one comment that was missed from item number 1, opening remarks. It's from Gary Hamill. He writes, "It's very disheartening to watch Proposition 13 Foundation being attempted to be modified. This matter is often clouded/shielded with indirect/misleading dialogue. I support Proposition 13 regulations as they were originally passed with a large majority. I hope that governing bodies are sworn to protect its citizens will defend the original Proposition 13 regulations and keep Proposition 13's regulations intact. Thanks, Gary Hamill." And that should conclude the items for 1 and 2. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for all that public comment. We appreciate it. Ms. Davis, can you please call our next item?
Yes, sir. Our next item on the agenda is a discussion with proponents and opponents. We have 6 speakers for this matter coming before the board. Member Gaines, are you prepared to introduce the speakers at this time?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Just wanted to reiterate the timing, though, if we could. Speakers, as a reminder, your groups will have 15 minutes each to present, and then each will have 15 minutes of rebuttal period. So this segment will be 1 hour long, followed by public comment and questions from board members. And I'd like to take this opportunity now to introduce our speakers. With the proponents, we have Lenny Goldberg, Research and Policy Consultant, Schools and Communities First. In addition, we have Gloria Soto, Santa Maria Council Member, District 3. And third on the proponent side is Devin Murphy, Planning Commissioner, City of Pinole, and a small business owner. The opponents are represented by Rachel Michelin, President of the California Retailers Association, John Kabatek, California State Director for the National Federation of Independent Businesses, and Jamie Johannesson, President of the California Farm Bureau. With that, I'd like to ask the proponents to begin, and then we'll move to the opponents, and then we'll do it again with rebuttals. 15 minutes for each section. So proponents, are you ready? Ms. Davis, can we open it up to that portion of the agenda for?
Yes, AT&T operator. We want to make sure that we have the lines open for our co-host, Mr. Goldberg, Mr. Murphy.
Yes, yep.
Okay. Can we make sure that we do a quick roll call to ensure that we have all of our proponents and opponents available? Mr. Goldberg?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Member Soto?
Here.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes, I'm here.
President Michelin,
I'm here.
State Director Kabetic. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name.
Kabatek?
Yes, this is John
John
Kabatek. I'm here.
And President Johansson.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. It seems as though we have everyone accounted and a present for Member Gaines. How would you like for them to proceed?
Yeah, let's just, as per the agenda, let's begin with the proponents. And I don't know if Lenny Goldberg wants to start off, but you've got 15 minutes for the three of you. Thank you.
I think Gloria Soto is going to begin.
Okay, that's fine.
Good morning. Thanks to the Board of Equalization for giving me the opportunity to talk about schools and communities first, Proposition 15. It's a pleasure to be on with you today. When I first learned about schools and communities first, I was in awe about the endless possibilities for our local cities and schools. Not only were we going to be able to increase our social safety net capacity, but also raise funding standards for all students in California. However, this all changed when the public health pandemic started to ravage our communities. COVID-19 has increased major social, economical, and racial disparities that can no longer be ignored. Our residents are experiencing severe economic impacts, and people are struggling. What was once a dream is now a necessity. Here in Santa Maria, we project a $14.6 million revenue shortfall over the next 3 fiscal years, with a preliminary $3.8 million decrease this fiscal year. To keep our city afloat this fiscal year, we are relying on our reserves to avoid layoffs and plan on implementing major cuts to public safety, youth, and recreation next fiscal year. We have over 108,000 residents in Santa Maria who rely on crucial local public services, such as first responders, community and youth programs, parks, and library services. Severe budget shortfalls represent a serious threat to being able to provide and expand these much-needed services. California's 482 cities are projecting a nearly $7 billion general revenue shortfall over the next 2 fiscal years, according to the League of Cities. To balance budgets, over 90% of cities are considering layoffs, employee furloughs, or cuts to essential public services. My county, the county of Santa Barbara, with a population of nearly 450,000 residents, is projecting a $50 million deficit. So many services that residents in my city depend on, such as public health, mental health, and social services, are at risk. Proposition 15 will be vital to our collective recovery and reinvestment. Santa Maria, along with other cities across the state, need diverse and stable revenue sources to rely on. We can do this by closing long-lasting property tax loopholes and ensuring the biggest, most expensive commercial properties pay fair market property tax rates, not raising taxes on residents who are already overburdened or on seniors who are on fixed incomes. Estimates have shown that Santa Barbara County would generate $110 million every year for both schools and local governments. And the city of Santa Maria alone would roughly receive $3.4 million every year, in addition to the revenues allocated to schools. Knowing that additional revenue will be coming in would help us and other local governments in the state plan for the future. Importantly, a recent analysis of Prop 15 showed that only 10% of the biggest, most expensive commercial and industrial properties would generate 92% of the revenue. Local elected officials throughout the state understand that implementation of this proposition is going to take hard work, but that it's critical to support our essential workers and having the resources to combat other crises, like the deadly 2018 Montecito mudslides and fires that occurred in our county. Our communities are in both a public health and economic crisis, and local elected officials are having to make impossible budgetary decisions while combating a pandemic. We simply cannot miss this opportunity, and our community members cannot wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Thank you, Gloria Soto.
Chairman Gaines, Member Schaefer here. Was that a change of speaker, Gloria Soto? I had Nikki Fortunato.
Yes, it is. And I mentioned that at the beginning. But yes, that is a change of speaker that we were notified prior to the hearing today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. I don't know if Lenny Goldberg wants to speak or Devin Murphy is next.
Hi, member.
Go ahead, Devin.
Board of Information. That'll be me. Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for allowing a small business owner like myself to talk about how Schools and Communities First, Proposition 15, would benefit businesses and communities throughout California. As said before, my name is Devin Murphy, and I'm a Pinole resident, planning commissioner, and local small business owner. Proposition 15 is good for business, it's good for our local neighborhoods, and it's certainly good for our children. Small businesses are the backbones of our communities, working to provide services, food, goods to our local customers. And they're run by parents, neighbors, homeowners, and renters, users of public services like parks and libraries, and members of the community at large. The Schools and Communities First Act is a win-win for us. It protects small businesses, it cuts business personal property taxes, it levels the playing field for us, and very importantly, it brings nearly $12 billion every year and much needed resources for our neighborhoods and schools. These are essential investments that would benefit small businesses throughout the state, giving our students and neighbors access to the local critical services in schools that we're all relying on so much, especially here in Pinole. By closing long-standing property tax loopholes that overwhelmingly benefit a small fraction of large corporations, we can level the playing field for businesses like ours who are already paying our fair share. Small businesses and entrepreneurs like myself are at an inherent disadvantage if we're competing against a corporation that is paying property taxes based on artificially low assessments done decades ago. To emphasize this point, a recent analysis of the initiative clearly showed that only 10% of the biggest, most expensive commercial and industrial properties would generate 92% of the revenue, illustrating that a small percentages of business at the top currently have an unfair advantage in our economy. Proposition 15 exempts commercial and industrial property worth a combined $3 million or less. And data from the University of Southern California showed that 90% of such properties are worth $3 million or less. So moreover, Proposition 15 completely protects residential property, including explicit protections in the Act for such property that home-based businesses operate out of, businesses like mine. More than half of all small businesses in California are home-based, according to the Department of Industrial Relations. And moreover, the 3 to 5 year phase-in timeline in the Act also provides some extra cushion for large commercial property owners to adjust. Again, small businesses like mine and others that have been hit the hardest during this crisis would benefit from the business property tax cuts included in this initiative. Not only will every single business in the state see exemptions on business personal property taxes, personal property worth up to $500,000, small businesses will be completely exempted from such taxes going forward, providing small businesses with the level playing field we need to compete right here, right now. Members of the Board of Equalization, I personally run 2 businesses, a digital marketing firm for nonprofits and emerging companies, and a vending machine company, which I'm very proud of. Each business would benefit from Proposition 15 exemptions and tax cuts. In particular, if passed, both my home-based businesses would benefit from exempting up to $500,000 of equipment and fixtures from the business personal property tax, and I would actually really appreciate that. Right now, businesses are paying market rate rent regardless of how much their landlords are saving in low property taxes. The same goes for consumer prices, which is dictated by the market and not how much the property owner saves in property taxes. In conclusion, small businesses, especially those owned by people of color, have disproportionately been impacted by tax loopholes that divest from our community in favor of corporations. So when the large commercial property owners don't pay their fair share, we all bear the burden in the form of increased fees, sales taxes, gross receipt taxes, parcel taxes, bond measures, and more. Alternatively, when we all pay our fair share, local businesses thrive, and our communities have the resources to flourish as well. I yield my time and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Goldberg, would you like to conclude?
Yes, this is a time where the Board of Equalization can actually live up to its name, equalization, because we have an incredibly unequal system. I would like really to respond in later questions to Ms. Stowers' comments, but I want to say this is the greatest step for social and economic justice that we will see in our lifetime. We have huge corporations, mainly shareholders out of state, all over the world, who are benefiting from low property taxes. We will take that revenue and invest it in critical services in our communities. You know, people in our communities are paying fees, charges. This is when we get to the equity issue. We're all supporting our local services in our local communities when big corporations are not. And those numbers are absolutely accurate when we look at properties that, like Chevron and Intel and IBM, they're paying 1/100th of their competitors with no effect on prices, no effect on jobs. And the question I have for this board and for people, if it's been 30 and 40 years since we've reassessed property, these big properties, how long should we wait? 50, 60, 100? The fact is that these properties are sitting out there at 1975 values, 1985 values. Irvine Company has huge properties in the 1980s. So with regard to one of the questions about COVID-19, and we really appreciate what the ledge analyst said about that they take into account potential downturns. Even if there is a downturn in a recession in market values, we're not going back to 75, 80, 90, 2000. All of these properties are coming up and we will generate huge amounts of revenue irrespective of what the current property market looks like. So again, I urge you to ask all these questions. Now with assessment issues, assessors are right now doing 40,000 transfers a year. According to the assessors and the BOE, there are 640,000 commercial properties in the state. At 40,000 transfers a year, at 120,000 transfers that will, commercial property, you will get much more than your 10%. We'll have more than 90% of your revenue with the assessors doing the same amount of work they currently are doing. One thing that I know you have a panel that's completely unbalanced on the other side on appeals, but the fact is we have streamlined the appeals process. We've gotten rid of the 2-year requirement. We make sure that data is available up front. A lot of this value, a huge amount of the value, over the majority, is in land that people have been sitting on, and when land is not going to be likely to be appealable, all the assessors say those land values are absolutely accurate. So we have taken a lot of the considerations of the appeals. Now, with regard to the phase-in, the first lien date is 2022, but the Board of Equalization, you get to convene a task force, which will bring in, obviously with the legislature, with the assessors, with auditors, with taxpayers, and we'll be looking at the implementation issues. So the ability to do that in the context of a recession says, okay, here's how we're going to start implementation. We're going to take these we'll take the oldest and largest properties first. The revenue will start to flow. For those that we have a restriction on, if you have a majority of small business, not till likely that current leases have expired in 2025. We know that those leases will be at market. There is no evidence whatsoever that any prices are affected. I've worked a lot with the with the Retailers Association, and if you look at their prices, they're all online. The difference in property tax makes not a single bit of what the prices that people pay. We know that those big retailers have different property taxes all over the state and the same prices. So, assessment issues, appeals issues, assessors will be able to do the job. We have a report that will be coming out soon, which will show this is done relatively easily in every part of the country, and that's a critical issue for the Board of Equalization. You will have the role of implementing enforcing, gathering the data that's necessary for inter-county communications, because that's one thing that was raised, and we were clear to say that the state gets to the state, that meaning likely the Board of Equalization, as decided by the legislature and the BOE, will be in the position to provide the information flow necessary to enforce, and the enforcement is necessary on the small business provisions. We know true small businesses will be exempt, true small properties will be exempt, but those chains like McDonald's who call themselves a real estate company, really, because what they have is low assessed value real estate all over, will not benefit from the $3 million exemption. Yes?
Mr. Goldberg, you got about 45 seconds. So I just wanted to give you a warning.
45 seconds. Well, I hope in the discussion and the rebuttal, and Ms. Stowers in particular asked those questions, but we have a very sensible phase-in. We have provisions for assessors, we have provisions for appeals, and we have a measure that will take revenue from the large shareholders, wealthy investors, real estate investment trusts, foreign wealth funds that are benefiting from California's low property taxes for these big companies, and invest them in our people, in our services, in our schools. Nothing could be better for equity in the state of California. And as I said, you'll never see a measure that moves better towards social and economic justice than Proposition 15.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. That we heard from the proponents. We'll now move to the opponents. Rachel Michelin, John Kabatek, and Jamie Johannesson. Who would like to speak first?
This is Rachel Michelin. I'm going to lead off today. So thank you and good morning.
Morning.
Rachel Michelin. I'm the president of the California Retailers Association, and really appreciate the opportunity to address the impacts Prop 15 will have on all Californians, but particularly retailers. Voters are being asked to consider Prop 15, the largest property tax in California's history, at a time when millions of Californians are unemployed and businesses across the state are struggling to survive. This massive tax increase could not come at a worse time. Ultimately, Prop 15's tax hike on businesses will get passed on to Californians in the form of increased costs on just about everything people buy and use. That includes daily essentials like groceries for our pantries, fuel for our cars, utilities to power our homes, and other necessities like daycare or healthcare. In California, we already have among the highest costs of living, and Prop 15 will only drive those costs of living even higher. These increased costs will make it challenging for middle and working class families to live, work, and raise their families in our state. With the current economic challenges and millions out of work, many simply cannot afford the higher cost of living that Proposition 15 will bring. And now, particularly at this time of uncertainty, both from the COVID pandemic and our economic status, how can we ask Californians to pay even more for everything now? And on top of the higher costs that Prop 15 will bring upon Californians, it could also reduce private sector jobs. One study from Berkeley Research Group estimates that a tax like Prop 15 would cost California 120,000 private sector jobs. This same study found that taxes like Prop 15 would hurt female and minority-owned businesses. And these businesses, at least pre-COVID, they accounted for approximately 40% of businesses in our state. Minority-owned businesses are already more vulnerable than their counterparts, and Prop 15 is not going to help, particularly as we move, hopefully, past the pandemic and in an economic recovery. For example, the U.S. Census Bureau says African American small businesses are nearly twice as likely to fail as other U.S. businesses due to a lack of cash flow and sales. Those were statistics taken prior to COVID-19, prior to businesses being shut down for upwards of 10 weeks across the state. As my colleague John Kabatak will share during his remarks, despite claims to the contrary, there are no small business exemption in Prop 15. Again, no small business exemption in Prop 15. Prop 15 will hurt many of these businesses who are facing extension due to the COVID-19 crisis. Just this morning, I read an article about Santa Cruz and how many stores in their downtown are permanently closing due to COVID. Another article today stated that 30% of restaurants in the Bay Area could close permanently due to COVID. Businesses are struggling to survive. Now is not the time to increase their tax burdens. Sadly, unless it's defeated by voters in November, Prop 15 may very well be the final blow on top of the current crisis for too many, especially female and minority-owned businesses. Now in the COVID-19 environment, it is the worst possible time to attempt to pass the largest property tax increase in California's history. California retailers, we stand united in opposition to Prop 15. It's bad for retailers, it's bad for our employees and our associates, and ultimately, it's bad for California's consumers. California, our consumers and our small businesses, we just can't afford Prop 15. Thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Rachel Michelin. And why don't we just move forward to the next speaker, if we could. I don't know if that's John Kebatak or Jamie Johannesson.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is John. Yes, good morning, Board Member Gaines, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is John Kabatek. I am the California State Director for NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business. We represent about 15,000 small businesses across California. Thank you for the opportunity to speak from the perspective of small businesses across the state. California is facing an unprecedented economic crisis. Small businesses were struggling before COVID-19 pandemic. And the ensuing shutdown, now into its fourth month, has truly made life even more difficult for small business owners and their employees and the families. And Prop 15 will no doubt make that crisis worse. The future of California's economy is highly dependent on small businesses making a recovery. There's been a lot of talk that you'll hear that big business will be the only ones to pay Prop 15's higher property taxes. And by the way, I would add, as Rachel had mentioned, the largest property tax increase in California history. Let me be clear, Prop 15 will be incredibly damaging to small businesses, and it will hit them precisely at the time when they are the most vulnerable. There's a reason why small business associations across the state are opposing Prop 15. Some of these organizations are the NFIB, the California Small Business Association, the California Asian Chamber, the California Hispanic Chambers, the Family Business Association of California, California Chamber of Commerce, and various local chambers around the state, just to name a few. The small businesses that I hear from every day tell me that they are worried about their ability to keep their employees on payroll and their doors open. An April survey of NFIB's members found that 92% of small business employers have been negatively impacted by the outbreak of COVID-19. And yet, here we are talking about raising property taxes on businesses by as much as $11.5 billion per year. Contrary to the claims by the measure's proponents, small businesses are not excluded from the property tax hike. The proposition hikes taxes on most business properties in the state. The size of the business, whether it's large or small, owning or occupying the property is irrelevant. When we talk about small business, you should know that 48% of California's workforce is employed by a small business. Just so you know, that's 7.1 million workers in all. And these are the same Main Street businesses that make up the fabric of our communities. Here's where the myth that Prop 15 only targets big business gets shattered. According to research from our organization, NFIB, 78% of small businesses do not own the property they operate on. They rent. Unless voters defeat this proposition, many small businesses will likely pay higher rents or property taxes if this passes. Most small businesses have what is called a triple net lease that makes them responsible for property taxes, including increases when they sign their lease. Prop 15 does nothing to protect its higher property taxes from being passed along to small businesses. The measure's other so-called small business tax cuts are also an illusion. They are so narrow and they contain so many requirements that it will be virtually impossible for most small businesses to meet these requirements. So the question must be asked, how will these businesses survive? They're either going to be forced to lay off staff, or they'll be forced to raise the cost of goods and services on their customers, as Rachel Michelin had mentioned, which means that everyone will end up paying more if Prop 15 passes. What little cash reserve these businesses had going into the crisis is now gone or was spent on new and changing requirements to enable stores to reopen. It's an understatement to say it will take years for them to recover. So how can small businesses across California afford to pay higher rents due to a massive property tax increase under these conditions? If you're at all serious, and if we're at all serious about returning California to economic health, we need to start with California's 4 million small businesses. These are the businesses that are the bedrock of our communities. Prop 15, the largest property tax increase in California history, is the very last thing that our state's 7.1 million small business workers need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John Kabatek. We'll now move to Jamie Johannesson, President of the California Farm Bureau Federation.
Good morning. I am Jamie Johannesson, I'm President of the California Farm Bureau Federation. I appreciate the opportunity to share a few words about why farmers and ranchers across California are deeply concerned about Prop 15. Let me be clear, Prop 15 will create another challenge for agriculture by raising property taxes on ag-related fixtures and improvements. The prospect of a property tax increase on things it takes farmers to produce their products is devastating. Barns, dairies, production facilities, mature fruit and nut trees, wineries, producing vineyards, updated water conservation irrigation systems, and even solar panels will face higher property taxes under Prop 15. You can see how Prop 15 increases property taxes at just about every stage of production as our products go from seed to fork. And Prop 15 will mean higher property taxes for many farmers at the worst possible time. It will cost jobs across the state at a time of record unemployment. A recent CFBF economic impact study on agriculture by COVID-19 shutdown found that 94,000 job losses in crop farming and over 800,000 job losses when you include food service and retail sectors. Prop 15 will make California agriculture less competitive, as well as raising grocery prices for consumers. On behalf of the 34,000 members of the California Farm Bureau Federation and the countless other agricultural groups across the state, California Farm Bureau is asking for a no vote and to oppose the largest property tax increase in state history, which is proposed Prop 15. And thank you. And I look forward to your questions in terms of agricultural position and even the doomed $3 million exemption.
Great, wonderful. Thank you very much, Jamie Johannesson. We now are going to move to the rebuttal phase. And so the proponents will have 15 minutes to make rebuttal comments and also provide any additional information that you think would be helpful. And so are the proponents ready? You have 15 minutes for the segment.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, this is Len Goldberg, and I want to start with agriculture, and this is all on the record. This is in front of the Board of Equalization that will be making decisions on this. When we drafted this, the assessors said we don't want you to use zoning, we want you to use use. So in the measure specifically, it says agriculture is the production of commercial products is exempt. It then has a second requirement that it has to be considered commercial and industrial. Now I've looked at hundreds of use codes around the state that are used by assessors, and not one of them ever categorizes any agricultural purpose as commercial and industrial, which is explicitly what is called for in the initiative. So if any assessor, which they won't do, we've talked to assessors in rural counties say irrigation either runs with the land or it is considered business equipment, for example, and some of that would be exempt for agriculture. But should any assessor speak to trees and vines and nuts and irrigation and barns and all the things that the ag speaker talked to, we will, as proponents of the initiative, go before the Board of Equalization with the Farm Bureau, who will say after this passes, none of this is really covered, really, and we'll say, yes, it is not covered. We will ask the Board of Equalization if any assessor, which they will not do, ever considers any agricultural purpose commercial industrial, which is required by the initiative. If they do that, we will come before the board and say, we agree with the Farm Bureau, we agree with agriculture, none of this is ever to be covered. Now, the measure is so explicit that no assessor will ever do that. But should there be some, and this is a role of the Board of Equalization, as you know, you have very detailed regulations on issues, what's a fixture and what's personal property, et cetera, et cetera. If there is any question about it, and this is on the record, and Farm Bureau should, with this on the record, should remove their opposition, there is no question that all those things that the speaker spoke to will not be reassessed, period. And the Board of Equalization will, if they need to, which is very unlikely, but can issue any number of clarifying regulations consistent with the initiative's intent, which is to exempt agriculture and to only assess commercial and industrial property. As I said, no assessor will ever say that trees and vines are commercial and industrial. They're clearly agricultural and clearly exempt in the terms of the initiative. Secondly, it's very interesting that nobody here is speaking for those big corporations who are getting such a great break, but the retailers actually include Target and Walmart, and we've looked at many of their assessments. And what's interesting is that all their assessments differ all over the state. Even when they're brought to market value, it's going to be, a Target in Riverside or Fresno is going to be assessed less than a Target in West Los Angeles. That said, their prices are going to be exactly the same. In fact, in the data, and people are speaking in a data-free manner, their opposition never provides data, that 60% of properties are at or close to market value. With regard to small businesses, and I'll defer to Devin on that, but the notion that, that they're going to be all, people say, oh, we're all going to be hit by COVID-19. Well, one of the things we did in recognizing that 42 years later, these are going to be major changes. The first lien date, not till 2022. So we'll see what the economy looks like. In 2024, no properties that are majority small business will be reassessed till 25, and specifically 25, I mean to say, 2025, so that any leases that are entered into in 2019 or 2020 will have expired. Market rents will prevail. Market rents prevail right now. If commercial property values go down and small businesses are hurting, rents will decline. An article in the paper today said the biggest problem for small businesses is rent. Well, if properties values are declining and those rents are declining, those will decline for small businesses. But for the most part, they have absolute prices and rents have absolutely zero to do with the rates that rents or prices that are people are, with the property tax as people are being charged. Devin, you want to speak to small business?
Yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt the conversation, but if you are not speaking, if you can please ensure that your phone is muted. There's a lot of background noise, and we want to make sure that we hear the speakers when they're speaking. At this time, I believe Mr. Murphy was called upon by Mr. Goldberg. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I just wanted to make 3 quick points. Number one, and I think most of us on this call can understand, but when small businesses thrive, our communities thrive. And when we think about what the benefits of Proposition 15 can bring to our local communities, that's $12 billion reclaimed. And at this point, I would say that's reclaimed for local recovery. That means our schools, that means our community colleges, that means our streets and sidewalks, that means our parks, and overall our quality of life. And so again, this measure is all about making sure our communities thrive by way of ensuring our promotion of small businesses. That brings me to my second point around this measure is key in terms of cutting small business taxes by exempting up to $500,000. And as I mentioned during my speech, as a CEO of 2 home-based small businesses, I would be one of many small business owners to benefit from this opportunity. And I think it's really important that we know that the exemption eliminates this nuanced tax for 90% of all businesses. And then the last piece, and I think it's really important to think about, especially in a time of California, is that this measure also allows a 3 to 5 year phase-in timeline that provides extra cushion for large commercial property owners to adjust. And while I appreciate, the design of the initiative, I also want to say that we are in a time where we need this. Our communities absolutely need this. And more importantly, or as important, I should say, is our small businesses need this, because currently we're being nickeled and dimed with fees and new taxes, while large and rich and powerful corporations abuse the tax system and avoid paying their fair share. And inevitably, in a time where COVID-19, this crisis is impacting everyone, and I know we all agree that, we need support for our schools and our communities. And so the best way to do that is what we're doing right now in supporting Proposition 15.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you. Other comments from the proponents?
I'm sorry, I was muted. This is Lenny Goldberg again. In advance of some of the other proposals, other discussion that will be had later, I want to say that, for assessors and for appeals and for counties, we see a streamlined process, we see a phased-in process. We have, we could never have anticipated a pandemic, but if people look carefully at the design of this, we'll see that the flexibility of putting this through is actually great, and the legislature and the board and the assessors can all work together on making sure that we're moving along appropriately. I guess one of Ms. Stowers' comments was on tax allocation. The tax allocation problem, and this is a little technical, but she did ask a question, goes way back to Prop 13, and Prop 13 says the legislature can allocate. So they allocated, they reallocated. It was the decision in this measure not to take on the battles between cities, counties, special districts, but so that we left the allocation as it currently is. That's something that, people have talked about. We talked about reforming, but have never, ever reformed. I want to add a couple of more issues with regard to the benefits to ordinary homeowners and taxpayers. We have a 1% rate statewide, but we also have approximately 0.2% in bonds, in bonded indebtedness. And on the Oakland bill, for example, there are 23 overrides. All over the state, ordinary homeowners and other business taxpayers are paying all these overrides. When we expand the tax base, this will be a significant benefit, not just for infrastructure directly, because so much more money will pour into the infrastructure funds, but it will be directly to taxpayers who will see their accumulated debts, the 23 overrides or the 6 overrides or the overrides that exist in thousands of tax rate areas, will be paid off either much quicker or by lowering tax rates. And that affects business directly as well. Now, Devin spoke to some of the small business issues. I've talked to business owners who have said, well, the ability to do a business improvement district, if the city has that funding, will be really helpful for us along the lines of, increasing and improving our property values. So there is a stake here, both in terms of paying off debt, in terms of local community investments in any number of issues that will, fire protection. I think there's been no discussion of special districts, but the LA County Fire Protection District gets $150 million a year with regard to Councilwoman Soto's area of Santa Barbara gets $5 million a year. Special districts get big benefits. Paying off the bonds get huge benefits, and those are direct benefits to taxpayers and businesses. So the notion, we will all move together ahead on this. Farmers can withdraw their opposition because, in fact, we stipulate, and the measure stipulates very clearly that none of the issues that they're talking about will be affected. So agriculture is not part of this, despite their attempt at misinterpretation. And I can guarantee you this, that once the measure passes, and it will pass in November, the Farm Bureau will be up in front of the Board of Equalization, in front of the legislature, and with every county assessor saying, we're not commercial industrial, and every county assessor will say, they're not commercial and industrial. They're not intended part of this initiative. And they will, happily say, yes, we said something different in the measure because some of our very big donors wanted us to say that. But in fact, we do not think that we are not covered. We don't believe we're covered. The measure says we're not covered. The proponents say we're not covered, and agriculture is not part of this issue. So we actually think this is something that benefits the entire state of California. It does not have, when we look at consumer prices, you cannot find, whether it's a supermarket or a retail store, you could not find a difference in prices charged based on property taxes. You can find differences in prices charged are based on the market and competitive position. And so we're giving big shareholders, big corporations, wealthy REIT and commercial investors who own property mostly over $5 million. This is basically the 1%. We're giving them huge benefits while the rest of us are paying off our public debt, or watching our special districts lose money, watching our cities, counties, and our schools in particular lose money. With regard to equity, as I mentioned, this is a massive stroke for much greater equity in a society that has gotten much, much less equitable and is giving huge benefits to wealthy investors, big corporations, shareholders from all over the world. So and the data absolutely shows that. So I will sit down with any one of you, or not sit down these days, we'll talk on Zoom or online and walk you right through all the numbers, even the opponent's own study. And I will say this since it was mentioned. They use an example of 75% increase on every business. Well, we know that's completely false. 60% of businesses are close to market, of properties are close to market value. 3 million and 3 million and less eliminates something like another 70% or even more of properties that will be reassessed. So
Mr. Goldberg,
the notion is that
we're at the 1 minute mark.
Yes.
Just wanted to give you a warning. 1 minute mark. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks. I think you interrupted my train of thought, and I'm not sure where it was going, but that's okay. The fact is that the vast majority of people will benefit: big shareholders, big corporate property owners, wealthy investors, the ones who will finally pay a fair amount for the debt, for the special districts, for local government and schools. And so, this notion about prices, about agriculture is just completely false, raised by the other side. Small businesses are often in properties under $3 million. Small businesses, restaurants have a big personal property cost, and they're the ones suffering in the COVID. They will immediately get that $500,000 exemption. So we will say, yes, this is a price increase on a tax increase on shareholders and wealthy investors, and it is something that benefits the 99% of California taxpayers, homeowners, renters, and people in the state of California.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Goldberg, and the proponents. I will now move to the opponents and their opportunity for rebuttal, and then any additional information that you would like to provide. And please introduce yourselves prior to speaking. Thank you. Who's up first?
This is Jamie Johansson, California Farm Bureau.
Great, thank you.
I appreciate the comments from Mr. Goldberg, and I guess it goes back to how the bill was even, in the writing of the bill, that ag wasn't even wasn't even consulted or at the table. And I think we're seeing now is an understanding that ag has changed dramatically since Prop 13 in terms of the investment and the type of owners that are there. Still over 90% family owned. But I would just quickly, in terms of that argument, that were exempted from it, I would read the proponent's own words in their agricultural land fact sheet, which reads, quote, commercial and industrial structures on agricultural land would be taxed at fair market value unless the property is owned by a small independent owner. A dairy barn, food processing facilities, and wineries would be reassessed as they are commercial and industrial. We also see, too, the indirect costs in terms of farmer-owned co-ops who would see their facilities taxed and really diminish those purchasers and buyers of our products in California, which we've already seen over the last decade in terms of the number of food processors and people competing for our products. So one of the things California's opposition to it is not only our investments in the manufacturing side, which is on commercial and industrial land, but also that you're diminishing our market in terms of competition, as we are seeing many operations leaving California. I will tell you, I'm an olive farmer. I farm up, of course, only farm 80 acres. It gets dangerously close to me not being exempted to it. That's a personal experience. And yes, property is value in terms of property taxes is different than if you're farming olives or almonds or rice. Certainly, it has an effect on what you have. In fact, the California Constitution recognizes that trees and vines can be taxed, trees after 4 years and vines after 3. So there is a discretion in terms of the effect this will have on agriculture. I'd also remind you that as we talk about these wealthy landowners, and of course in agriculture, when you're looking at acreage now competing, you're looking at $30,000, some places maybe $50,000 an acre. It isn't hard to get to a $3 million valuation in terms of your business. I would point out too that you're looking at about 40% of the land in California is rented. So you have to also look at who owns that land, because if that individual who the beneficial owner, either direct or indirect, owns the property that exceeds the $3 million, you're going to see rent goes up. And as we work hard in terms of bringing new farmers into it, new and beginning farmers, generally described as people in agriculture less than 10 years, recent studies show that only about 70% of them have to rent land to get a start. So it isn't about the actual farmer. It isn't actually about that person doing it there, but it's about the cost that he's or she is going to incur as the landowner passes that down in terms of higher rents. So again, I would just really reiterate that, in the own words, and in terms of our board taking this position, and I have never seen generally would take a position in September. We were quick last February to take a position of opposition based on the proponent's own words that commercial and industrial structures on agricultural land would be taxed at fair market value. Unquote.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Johannesson. Next speaker from the opponent's rebuttal.
Yeah, this is John Kabatek, California State Director with the NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business. Again, I want to point out a few things. As I previously mentioned, it's important to point out, the fact that most small business owners do not own the property they're on. They rent, 78% rent. So whether a small business owner is fortunate enough to own their property or rent, that cost is going to hit them directly. So it's important to point that out when we start hearing about, language along the lines of small businesses will be off the hook. They will actually be very much on the hook. And in fact, what we also want to remind the board and everybody listening as well is that small business owners most of the time are required to sign and fill out a triple net lease, which makes them responsible for building insurance costs, maintenance costs, and yes, real estate costs, which means property taxes. So again, it's false to say that this is going to be, soaking a little bit of Wall Street and some of the big folks. This absolutely hits Main Street even more, given the fact that small businesses account for 99.2% of all businesses in California. And then again, that small business owner is now going to have to pass that cost on either through higher prices to the consumer but more likely we're going to see them who are struggling right now to have to scale back. And when we're looking at a 15% unemployment rate plus, which is probably going to be going up, this is the last thing we need to be doing, is putting more people on the edge, families on edge, that they may be out of work. So this is it's important to point out, Mr. Murphy talks about this is good for small business, but whether he rents or owns his property, this is going to be a cost that directly hits him and all small business owners out there. And it's important to point out that, small businesses right now, according to some of our more recent data, 1 in 5 small business owners anticipates being able to operate over the next 7 to 12 months. So we're going to see 20% of small business owners disappear. We're already hearing about 30% of restaurants alone in that industry doomed for closure. Why are we hitting them with more costs? So I think our point is it's important to know that this is not an exemption for small business. This is not a special benefit that's going to help small business. This is kicking small businesses further into the hole. They need to crawl out. We need to give them pave the way for success and for job creation. And Prop 15 does absolutely the opposite of it, with new costs that absolutely will be passed on to Main Street, to the owners, to the employees, and absolutely to the customers and consumers. And the last point I will make is, I heard Mr. Murphy mention that when small businesses thrive, our communities thrive. Very well may be true, since small business taxes actually do help fund a lot of our projects. And just important to point out that when small businesses suffer, and they are right now, and they will with new taxes, our schools, our potholes, our health facilities, and all of our public services and the people who work for the public sector will suffer. So let's help small business by helping public sector. Let's not let Prop 15 move forward, because that's going to be new cost absolutely on Main Street.
Great, thank you. Now our next speaker among the opponents, rebuttal opportunity.
Sure, this is Rachel with the Retailers Association, and I just want to kind of reiterate what my colleagues said, but especially what John mentioned. And I've had I looked at it as a privilege over the last few weeks to be doing Zoom calls with chambers of commerce, local chambers up and down the state of California, and minority-owned business chambers of commerce around the state. And, these are businesses that, it's not just a small business to them, it's their dream. They invested in this. They saved, they scraped, they saved. They really put the blood, sweat, and tears into having their small business, particularly our independent retailers across California. And this is going to destroy some of them. I mean, that's the bottom line. If there's one thing that I've learned, is that government rarely takes taxes away. They typically add taxes on. And this is another tax where I don't think we're going to see particularly local governments giving tax relief to businesses in exchange for the largest tax increase in California's history. And when you talk to these small business owners and the stories, the heartache of having to furlough employees, trying to hold on, investing capital they don't have currently in PPE to protect their employees, to protect their consumers, to create a safe shopping environment, all of these costs have gone in for them to be active members of their community. And this is going to just be that nail in the coffin. They need help. They need government to assist them, and assisting them is not by increasing taxes. It does not make sense to me as someone who runs a business association, but also, frankly, as a consumer and a Californian, why during this pandemic, a pandemic that we don't know when the end is coming, we have no idea how long this is going to affect California. We have no idea if 3 months from now we're going to see another economic shutdown. And yet we're talking about putting the largest tax increase in our history on the ballot and putting it on the backs of small businesses. And so while I appreciate as a mom of 2 kids in the public school system, I understand the importance of education, I also know that it's our businesses that are the backbones. They're the ones that employ our young people. They're the ones that give the first job. Particularly retail, prior to this pandemic, 1 in 4 jobs were in the retail industry. We were a huge employment and economic driver of the state. And it breaks my heart talking to these small retailers across California who are just trying to hold on, And at the same time, even talking about the largest tax increase in California's history adds undue stress on them, thinking about how more am I going to have to pay to both live in California, but particularly be a business owner. So this is just not the right time to put this pressure on our small business owners, on our small retailers. I have retailers in parts of the state that are dependent on tourism. We don't even have our tourism industry back. We do not know the effects of COVID on our businesses. We won't know for months, probably years to come. Now is the time to not put added burdens on them and allow these businesses to thrive, reinvent themselves, and continue to be the backbone of our economy and the backbone of our communities. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we've heard from both the proponents and opponents to Prop 15. What I'd like to do is take a 15-minute break at this point. We've got transcriptionists who need a little time off, and it also gives members of the board and staff an opportunity to take a quick break. So if we could start back at, let's say, 12:20, that would be great. Thank you.